Does it still work?
What's up, Jason?
Hey, man.
It
How
has
are you?
been it has been a time.
It has. Since I last seen you, a lot has changed in my life.
Yeah,
I
since
re-
we and the listeners have heard, you've got some life changes, huh?
yeah, so I recently switched from using the Mail app on my Mac to using Gmail in the web browser.
I thought you were gonna say you switched to Laravel.
No, I thought about it. Um, no, yeah, we had a baby. It's a boy, and he's like 3 weeks old. And
How many commits has he made yet?
how many what?
How many commits?
He's pretty lazy, man. He just lays around. No, it's been wild. So he was born. Oh my goodness, I don't even know the date. It's all a blur. October 10th or 11th, one of those. Maybe even the 12th. And then we came from the hospital. We came home on the hospital Friday or Saturday, and there was just water all in our bedroom and bathroom.
Oh no.
Yeah, so we had a drain burst. And so we slept in there a couple of nights in the water. I just thought like my dog like peed in there or something because we were gone for 3 days.
Sure.
But it never dried up. So
No.
we had a plumber come out. He said, it's probably a problem with your roof. Had the roofer come out. He's like, it's probably a problem with plumbing. And so, yeah, it was a plumbing problem.
Oh no, that's awful. Right at the worst time too.
Yeah, so we were sleeping in the front of our house on couches. We didn't want the baby back there. And so literally last night was the first night we slept in our bed since the baby was born.
Jeez.
So,
That's what, a couple weeks?
yeah, it was 3 weeks. So we slept there the first week, and then the last 2 weeks we were on couches. But like insurance came out and was like, here's what we'll give you. I was like, great. If I hire someone to do this, this is not enough. And so I was like, we'll just do it ourselves, which was a terrible decision. Because I don't know anything about like laying floors or anything like that, but we did it, and here we are.
So would you say that you were doing, you jumped straight into doing plumbing and production?
Yes. Yes.
Oh man, that sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It's been awful. I'm actually, our bathroom's not done because like we went to lay floor and we had to pull up tile in one section. The rest was carpet. I don't know why whoever wanted carpet in the bathroom. I don't know. I do not like the people who lived here before.
Well, hey, it's a good excuse to improve things, right?
I guess. But we went to pull up the tile, and like it was 2 layers of tile because someone was like, I don't like this tile, and then just tiled over it. And so our floors are uneven, and I don't know. I miss renting.
Yeah, dude, I bet that would have been, well, I mean, it could have been a bad, long situation if you didn't have a great landlord, but at least you wouldn't have to deal with all these things.
Yeah, my bank account's like up and down and up and down.
Oh God, I bet.
But yeah, so it's been exciting, to say the least. I was really happy. I started back work Wednesday, and I was really happy to like close my office door and just not talk to anyone for 8 hours.
Yeah, did you get like, what, 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off or something?
I did, yeah, 3 weeks.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was good. So,
man.
Anything exciting with you in the last 3 weeks?
Oh, not really. I've been playing a little bit of Red Dead Redemption. I'm excited for that.
How's that?
It's fun, man. It's kind of a hunting simulator. I played the the previous one, I don't know, like 5 years ago. So it's been, another. It's so if anybody doesn't know, it's like from the guys who make Grand Theft Auto. So it's an equally, in-depth, long open world game. So it's in the Wild West, which is where not a whole lot of video games go. So it's been pretty fun to play that. I've been hunting animals and things.
Neat. When you say that, it makes me think of like the big hunting arcade games that you play at like Dave and Buster's.
Yeah, yeah. I wish they need to sell like one of those um, console versions of the shotgun or something.
Totally unrelated to like anything. We were while we were just redoing our whole house, we were cleaning out our office, and like I had like an N64 and an NES and like all my PS1 games from a kid when I was a kid.
Oh man,
And
those are some good times.
I know I was like, I don't use these. And so I was about to throw it out, and I went and there's actually still a market for that stuff. I got like $120 for all that.
Dang, I wish I would have known. I would have bought them from you.
My bad. Quick sale.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. There's still quite a few of those left out there.
Yeah. So, Ruby.
Actually, you've been up to some non-Ruby.
Yeah. So,
what else have you been doing in the last 3 weeks? You've been all over the place.
I came home. I've been working on an app called Smoked, SMOKD, which is like Untapped, but for cigars. And if you're not familiar,
yeah, I was gonna say.
Untapped is like a social app for like beer drinking. And so like you look up beers, you rate them, you check them in, people like it. I mean, it literally is just like Facebook, but like beer specific.
Yeah, like, lets you record and rate how you like different beers and what other people liked and stuff. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine was like, hey, this would be really cool for cigars. And that was like 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago now. And I was like, cool. And so I like toyed with it on and on the last few years, but like I think it was like May or June I got real serious about it because it still doesn't exist. And so this one is for cigars. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's not just any smokes, it's cigar specific. And so like, dude, I've been like busting my tail on this thing. And so I built it in React Native and like spent a lot of time like trying to do it the correct React Native way. And like,
did you use Expo or did you use like just React Native directly?
So I started with Out Expo, and I had a pretty polished app because there's a lot of libraries out there that don't work with Expo, but do work with just straight Create React app. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Just straight React Native app stuff. But the problem was when I went to like deploy and stuff, it just like showed all my weakness. Like, I don't know anything about like compiling Android apps, and there were problems, and I didn't know how to debug them. And I was like,
because I've not done the Android compile, but I've done the iOS one, and it worked just fine.
Oh, the iOS one was really easy. Great.
I haven't done the Android stuff though, but it's Android. A lot of rough edges.
And yeah, it's rough edges, and it comes down to like I just don't know anything about like native development.
Yeah, although I mean, having done the iOS side of things, I would have assumed it was as simple as you run a command, it poops out a file, and you upload the file to the Google App Store or whatever.
Yeah, so I rebuilt it using Expo, and that went really well. And the cool thing about Expo is it will actually like you can from the command line you can be like Expo deploy or build or something like that, and it'll actually build the native packages like in the Expo cloud.
Yeah, which is really awesome because then you don't have to do any of that work. Which
it's so cool. I wonder when they're going to start charging for it because.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it may already be there to the point where people would pay for it, but the biggest problem with React or Expo is like, man, their camera is not that great for video, and there's
Mm.
no way for me to use unless I completely detach it or whatever. Then that's the only way I can use like the React Native camera library, and it's just it needs to be smoother. The whole, only use our libraries, otherwise you can't. It's just really frustrating. So if they were to improve that, then I would certainly be willing to pay something for it. It seems so smooth.
I would even pay for like just building my apps,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like just when I say build, like compiling them to native like packages. But yeah, the camera, that was a really like touchy spot for me because without Expo, there's a lot of really good camera libraries available for React Native. But Expo's is like you have to build the entire like camera interface yourself from like buttons to like switch camera.
Yeah, and it's annoying. I was trying to use it for recording video, and of course, they don't have any support for choosing the codec for what you record in, and so now the iOS 11 or 12 introduced a new codec HEVC, and that, of course, doesn't really play back in the browser very well. And so then I was like, how do I change this? Oh, of course, they don't have the option to change it. So I kind of gave up on the app for a little while at that point. I had other things to do. But yeah, it definitely needs to have a more fluid. I don't exactly know what the reasoning is for, them provide. I understand they're trying to provide their own well polished interfaces and libraries and stuff, but like there needs to be a smooth way of using these third party libraries with it. Otherwise, it's just frustrating to use because it doesn't do everything well or, provide the interface to do everything. So, yeah, it's got some work needed.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I got off because I got off track because that was a lot of things that really bothered me. But so like right before baby was born, like I had had app like on my phone, just like running it from the simulator, iOS simulator. Sorry, Xcode, like deploying to my phone. Like it felt good, and like I spent a lot of time like polishing rough edges, like trying to make this thing like a good user experience. And so after we got home, I was like, well, I'll go ahead and try and see if like I can push it like up to the app stores because I went to a cigar specific event here in Memphis like on a Friday and Saturday. And so we came home on a Friday or Saturday, one of those. And so like I had a week exactly to finish it and get it to app stores because like my goal was I want people to use it at this event. And so I submitted it to Google Play Store and it was live within 30 minutes. And I was like, cool. Apple takes a little longer. And then I got an email that said the next day, we've rejected your app because your app promotes self-harm. I wish I would have known that like 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have built and learned how to build an app if you knew that. So
It was, and so like it was specifically related to tobacco, and like I totally understand the reasoning. It was just very frustrating, and so I was like, well, I guess it's time to just give up. And that was like I got that email on like Wednesday, and the event was Friday. And so then my wife was like, I'm going to be really mad at you if you've spent all this time and you don't have anything to show for it. And I was like, all right. And so I fired up. Okay, before I did that, so progressive web apps have gotten way better in the last like couple of years.
Oh, cool. I haven't really kept up with any of that stuff.
Yeah, I had no reason to, but it's about the only feasible way I know for my app to exist.
So tell
And
us
so
more. Tell us more. Sell us.
So essentially, like you have these service workers, which I guess iOS recently allowed, and that'll like you can do things like send push notifications. Um, you can cache the app so that it'll work offline. And so it's the only thing is like it's not familiar to people because they're used to installing apps from the App Store.
Yeah, how do you install them?
So you have to go to the web app, which right now is like app.smoked.app, lots of app, and then you add it to your home screen.
/app. The username and passwords are both app.
So you add it to your home screen, and it's essentially just it's a web app, progressive web app.
So it's like bookmarking a website to your home screen.
Yeah, except when you install it to your phone, it pulls out the like Safari browser buttons and header and stuff.
Yeah, right. And that's what happens when you bookmark a web page. But because you've got a progressive web app, it's got a service worker, and then that's what handles some of the offline stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, and I haven't really gotten much into the service worker stuff yet. What I did was I tried to build it as just like a Rails monolith, and I just wasn't happy with how like the UI was turning out. And by that point, now it was Thursday. And so I was like, oh man. So I did a Create React app, which has PWA support built in.
Okay.
And use Firebase, which I hate and has been an awful experience. But I was able to use my app on Friday.
So what do you not like about Firebase? Because I've heard a lot of good things, but I've never used it.
The things I don't like are probably from my own ignorance. I don't particularly like writing all like my queries and like database stuff in this like in my React components. It feels weird.
Right. Well, there's not a way, unless you build an actual backend, there's not much of a way around that.
Right.
And I guess that's the same approach that Meteor was suggesting, although they didn't have security for a long
time. The other thing, I don't have a lot of experience with NoSQL.
Sure. So, is it like Mongo backed or something?
Yeah, it's document stores.
Gotcha.
And so I don't really have any experience with that. And so like things like relationships are hard for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're not necessarily really relationships. They're like just nested things or whatever.
Right. And like
yeah, there's no such thing as like necessarily nested tables or whatever. It's just different.
And so it's a lot of like random document grabbing and lining up, and like I'm clearly this works because a lot of people like use NoSQL, or a fair amount of people do, but like I just never worked with it on that kind of scale. Like
yeah, it's all new, so it's not. It requires a whole different mindset than the relational database that you're used to.
The NoSQL stuff I'm familiar with is like active record,
like Mongoid.
Yeah. That. So my plan, I think, is to build a backend, because like when I built the React Native app, I had a Rails API.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that
why couldn't you have used that as well on the new one?
Firebase was a lot faster to deploy in like 24 hours.
Well, I thought you already had, but if you already had the Rails API, did you need to, or did you have to change it too for something?
Well, so I wasn't stoked with how I was handling authentication on the API.
Okay.
And that's one thing Firebase just gives you.
Right.
Is like, to the point where there's like a React web UI Firebase component. And so literally you just drop this component in and attach your like provider keys and stuff, and it'll just give you a UI for like logging into Facebook and all that.
Cool. That's really nice.
So like, and I was like, Firebase at the time I thought it was going to be great. And so I was like, okay, this will be fine, but I don't know. I think I'd rather control the data. So yeah. Anyway, that's my, and all that was happening with a new baby and a busted bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, no one can complain that you haven't been busy lately, huh? I mean, well, I'll complain for them. You haven't been doing the podcast, man.
I haven't. And I wanted to, like, my plan was to do it like the week we got back, but here we are.
Hey, we understand. I've been busy hunting anyways, so.
But I haven't done much Ruby. I mean, I'm back at work now, and that is letting me do Ruby again. And then I have a couple of side projects lined up, one with you, and then one I've been thinking about, like you joked earlier, one I've been thinking about doing in Laravel.
What's that one?
So it is kind of like under wraps right now, but it's like it's review related software. And it's actually with one of my old bosses, randomly enough. He's kind of gone out on his own, and he's like fantastic at marketing, like, and branding. That's his whole like career.
Nice. That's what you need.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that one, and I've been thinking about doing Laravel just to like scratch the itch.
Yeah.
Because of all the things it gives you, as we've talked about every episode.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I know Rails and Ruby so well, like maybe it's worth doing that. I've also thought about, if I do it in Ruby and Rails, finally giving Hatchbox a fair try.
Hey, there we go.
So
yeah, I've been working on Hatchbox a bit lately. Been improving the UI a bit. There's been a little bit of just, I added in some of the like action cable sends over status updates when things change, but if that ever gets out of sync, it doesn't work correctly. So I've got a lot of UI improvements and stuff that I've been making lately to try and make sure that the client stays consistently up to date. So I'll probably have to, it's one of the things when you're, if you're building something like a Slack or something, when you have the server streaming updates to the client, you need to either make sure that those updates came through, or periodically on the client check and make sure you didn't miss anything, that sort of thing, because that's effectively what's happening on a Hatchbox. Like when servers, they're listed as pending or deploying or something, and they don't change the status automatically, even though they've changed on the back end, like for whatever reason, one of the messages maybe didn't come through. And so that's been a fun one to address. Just trying to make, it's interesting, I guess, in building stuff is, you can build that first version and hack together a prototype that does the basics really easily, and then to build something robust that handles all of the random failures, that's very hard to do. And that's what takes, the 80% of time when you're building something. You can build the prototype in 20% of the time, but there's going to be a lot of edge cases that you just can't address if you're just building something fast. That's kind of where pieces of the UI have landed, because most of the work for Hatchbox is, of course, handling all of the various errors that can happen when you're doing stuff over SSH. About an infinite amount of problems can happen, and it's very hard to make sure that you catch all of those. So that's where most of the effort's been for quite some time. So I'll be curious to see if you try it out. What your experience is like and what's clear and what's not clear. And maybe we can, talk through that sometime over the podcast or something.
Yeah, that'd be
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
My kid's having a breakdown. Okay, so I'm gonna have to cut out early because this is the kid I'm responsible for mostly right now with the baby here. So
no worries. Well, it's good to catch up, man. I'm sure everybody enjoyed the update finally on the podcast. So we should be back regularly now. Unless you plan on having more kids, like in the next few weeks,
next
right?
week. All right, man. Cool. Good to catch up.
All right. Catch you later.